Welcome back, everyone, to Dolphins versus the World here. It is me, Chase, and I'm joined, as always, by our producer in the booth, Joel, and we got Anthony here with me. Anthony, how are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing good. We are officially, as recording this, we're like 48 hours away from the first Dolphins game. Dude, it's crazy. It comes by like it feels like forever, but then it's like, oh my God, we're about to start football season. And then I feel like you blink once and it just feels like it's already over, doesn't it?
100%.
So
That's
yeah.
it. It is snuck up like it always does. Like once you get past a certain point, it just feels like the months turn into just weeks and days, just quicker by the minute.
Right.
And the news coming out of everywhere, not just Dolphins camp, has been crazy. There's been already so much stuff, so much content. Like everyone's got a story and they're all sharing it out there online. And just basically preseason's, like you said, starting up here. And the Dolphins have begun joint practices with the Atlanta Falcons, their first preseason opponent. And practices haven't been living up to expectation, I guess, is what most people have been saying here, and myself included. As we were talking before the show, it's all relevant to expectations, and the expectations are high for this team this year. They're different than they have been in years past. Even just last year, I think everyone would say if this team makes playoffs, they'll be happy. Now everyone's thinking this team has the potential to win the Super Bowl, which they do. So that's pretty much why I think everyone's kind of a little down on just what's been coming out of camp, that they're not world beaters yet. But what says you? How have you been taking in just what's been going down here the past few days?
Yeah, joint practices to me are always they're tricky because, like we talked about right before we came on, we don't know how good the other team is either. And, I look back to last year, Mike McDaniel kind of mentioned this in his press conference today, like last year we were dominating the Eagles in joint practice, and then they went to the Super Bowl and they were probably arguably one of the best built teams in the last decade of football. And so, it's kind of hard to tell in these things. I think I would agree with you that, heading into this, I kind of expected a little more dominance from the offense. I think defensively, we could all agree from things we've heard collectively from people at these practices that the defense is doing their thing. And we'll definitely dive into that. But I think offensively, this is kind of one of those situations where I've mentioned trusting the coaching staff in past episodes, and I know that's kind of hard because the Dolphins always, we've never kind of been in this territory with these expectations. But
Dolphins coach,
right, exactly. But in these situations, I'll be concerned if we get to like week 3 and it's like, hey, the first 2 weeks of the season, it was, but even after the first week of the season last year, the first week of the season last year, we had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, but we only scored 20 points. So the offense didn't do much, and looked what it turned out to be. So, I'm going to trust guys like Tyreek, Jalen, Tua, McDaniel. I'm going to trust them to get it figured out. And going back to what I said at the beginning, who knows how good the Falcons are going to be? I think it's a little rude and disrespectful that a lot of people out there just assume that they suck because of what happened last year, but it's 2023, people. It's not 2022 anymore. They revamped their defense. It looks better. Their offensive line, in my opinion, last year was a top unit, like top 10, and it only got better in the offseason. So I think, we talked about this last episode. I was excited for these practices because I thought it was going to bring a good challenge. I didn't say anything about the Houston Texans because, they are a team that I don't expect to be great, but even them, they're still a professional football team. But like I expected the Atlanta Falcons to pose some problems. And what we also have to understand as fans is these teams like the Atlanta Falcons, they watched our tape last year too. And these joint practices are not only meant to, run your own stuff, but to practice game simulation of trying to stop another team. And there's going to be hiccups at first of Mike McDaniel and the offense figuring out, okay, this is what teams who had a full off season to figure out how to stop us. This is what they're doing. Now let's try to counter it. So I'm not. I think like you, I was kind of. I'm a little more like interested. Like, oh, okay. Like, I expected us to be a little more dominant on offense, but overall, again, we're still early. We're a month away from week 1, so let's just give it time. Certainly, again, I'm not trying to say that everything's going to be fine, but let's not jump overboard just yet.
The end at the end of the day, preseason does not matter until it matters. If we're sitting here and we're not a good team, like coming out the gates, then we'll be like, well, preseason obviously was an indication. But if we turn the switch and we're what we expect would be, no one will be talking about preseason after week 1. No one will care.
And I just think we're so top heavy as a team too, to where for me, what I care more about, again, am I worried about Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua, who were like top? I think they were like top 5 in the history of quarterback wide receiver duos last year. So like, I trust they'll get it figured out. It might, who knows what it's going to look like, but as long as Tua is healthy, I'm not really worried. To me, I'm more so looking at the depth of this team because injuries happen. We're seeing it the last couple of days. Injuries will happen. So to me, that's what I'm more looking at. I'm looking at the development of guys like Noah. I'm looking at the development of backup interior defensive line. I'm looking at development of who's filling in that wide receiver 3 and 4 spot. That's the type of stuff I'm looking for more so than like, Tua threw an interception.
Exactly. That's the type of stuff that preseason should be for, but obviously that's a lot more boring than the big storyline, so they don't get as much spotlight here.
Right.
And then what I'll say also, I'm not sure if you got a chance to look at it, but the depth chart that came out, that's pretty much irrelevant. That's just
I don't.
Yeah. No, if anyone's looking at that shouldn't be something you should be concerned with. They're not going to put out the week 1 depth chart now. Why would they do that? That wouldn't make any sense.
That's more so that depth chart. If they didn't have to put that depth chart out, they would. They have to put out an official depth chart before preseason week 1. If they didn't have to, they wouldn't, because again, so many things change. And honestly, half the time I've never been an NFL head coach, but I can assume that if I was in that position, hey, you know what? This guy, this player hasn't been performing as well as I want them to. And they kind of think that, they're given a spot. So you know what? I'm putting them as, 3rd string, but light a little fire under their ass. You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of times that happens. I put 0 stock into first depth chart. It's more so the depth chart that I'm always curious in is the week 1. And even that, that'll change. We've seen years past where Durham Smythe is our tight end 1 ahead of Mike Gesicki, but then, Mike Gesicki will go out there and he's taking a majority of the snaps when it's not like the running game, right? So don't put a lot of stock into it at all. But
something
I understand.
Put some stock into, though, at least me personally, I am, is the amount of penalties that have sort of been happening still pre-snap. We got all preseason to clean it up still, but it's just something to take note of. And I think at least, what's your perspective on that? It was something the Dolphins, obviously, we kept. The season ended basically on a delay of game call. So I'd like to see the pre-snap penalties done. And I think that's going to come with the evolution of Mike McDaniel as a play caller, as well as adjusting. Like you said, like the league sort of got out in front of the Dolphins there towards the end of the season. He's got to adjust, and I expect him to pass that test with flying colors personally.
Yeah, with this offense, there's so much motion. There's so much going on pre-snap that, Mike McDaniel alluded to it in his press conference this morning before practice that, one of the downsides to that is you have to have everyone on the same page. You have to have everyone in a calm, focused mindset, because, just the littlest thing can be, illegal motion, illegal formation in those situations. So, it certainly needs to get better. Another thing Mike McDaniel said is he told the players, there's no other way to put this. You were the worst. Like, we were the worst at pre-snap penalties. So it's definitely something they focused on. I highly doubt that Mike McDaniel, again, from things I've heard about what his focus has been in the offseason about fixing those things, getting the play calling a lot cleaner, so it's not taking forever to get to the line of scrimmage, leaning more on the run game. I think we're going to do so. I know that he has worked on it. I know that it has been an emphasis. It's been an emphasis for the coaching staff on the players. But at a certain point, it's up to these guys to know what the hell they're doing. You know what I mean? So, I know a lot of people are going to say Mike McDaniel needs to fix this. But at the end of the day, you have to rely on these offensive linemen and these wide receivers that you're paying millions of dollars to simply just not start before the ball is snapped. And I know it's harder than it looks, but that's just going to be one of those things where until these guys start gelling and, breathing, beforehand and not getting too antsy, it's going to be a problem. But, at the end of the day, like you said, let's just wait it out. But again, certainly something that needs to be addressed. And if we get into week 4 or 5 and we're dealing with these issues, then it's going to be something that needs to be fixed. Not only has to be fixed, it's a necessity that needs to be fixed.
And let's stay on the offensive side here. I just want to ask you a couple more questions, just what you've been seeing out there from what you've been listening to. So as far as the offense goes, I think the biggest question mark, which we were talking about briefly last week, and you sort of mentioned, is the battle going on between Liam Eichenberg. I always say that. And Isaiah Wynn. How's that been going? I remember seeing the other day, I can't remember who tweeted, but it was just Isaiah Wynn was getting some first team snaps, and I was like, wow, yeah. So it is good. I like to see that's open battle, because by all accounts, it has been a rough go this training camp for Liam Eichenberg so far, unfortunately.
Yeah, Liam Eichenberg, from everything I've heard, has been by far the worst player at camp so far for the Miami Dolphins this offseason. That's not a good thing, considering that draft. I was pounding the table for Creed Humphrey at that spot, and we decided to not only not draft him, but he traded up for Liam Eichenberg. The thing that I always say is, I'm not going to define you by your mistakes. I'm defining you by your willingness to learn from them and fix them. And when it comes to the Liam Eichenberg situation, what I'm seeing from reports, from me asking around to people who actually have eyes on the ground at camp, is he's got a very short leash. And I think that you look at years past, they've tried to make it work with him. But I do not expect Liam Eichenberg to be the starter week 1 at left guard. I think that they're going to have, Isaiah Wynn moving around, especially now that Tehran, he's not going to work a lot right now in this exhibition season. He's not going to be doing a lot until regular season starts. So they have to move guys around. They don't have that steady rock at left tackle. But I think if I had to predict, it's going to be Armstead, Wynn, Williams, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson at right tackle. And that even the right tackle job, I think, is probably going to be a competition between him and Kendall Lamb, who I heard has had a great camp. But yeah, Liam Eichenberg, dude, if it weren't for the fact that he was they traded up to draft him in the second round, he would not be on this team right now, because he's very bad. It's not even, every time we hear from camp, even today, right? You look at yesterday's practice, they had a bad practice, the Dolphins did, offensively, especially the offensive line getting dominated. Today, and this kind of has conflicting reports, because you're going to see people out there that if it doesn't look like the Eagles' offensive line, they suck. But I was told that today they did much better. They bounced back. They had some fire to them. They were aggressive. They weren't taking, crap from anyone except Liam Eichenberg. Like, literally everyone on the offensive line today looked better except Liam Eichenberg. And, left guard, luckily it's not to his blind spot, but, I think that's why they have Isaiah Wynn. They're kind of just trying to give him every opportunity possible. But I do not expect Liam Eichenberg to be the starter for the Dolphins week 1.
And that's part of the reason, he has, and Austin Jackson should too, in my opinion, like you said, have a short leash, because of Tua. We can't have him getting hit. That's the bottom line. I think, obviously you don't want any quarterback to be hit, but the Dolphins especially are in a interesting situation to say the least. But going on, well, the offense, they also struggled, I believe, in the scrimmage at Hard Rock Stadium, correct?
Yeah. From every indication, it was not a good practice. Really, the last 3 practices for the Dolphins offensively have been inconsistent, at the least, to say the least. But yeah, the scrimmage, and it's hard. I understand. You're going against. I expect our defense. If we're anything less than top 10, I will be disappointed because
there too.
I expect so much out of this defense between Vic Fangio and the talent we have. So
even with Ramsey down, I'm there.
Even with Ramsey down, I said that, like with Ramsey, you're a top 5 unit. Without him, you're still top 10. I don't care what anyone says until I'm proven wrong. That's what I think. But yeah, it's been 3 practices now where it's been kind of inconsistent.
Out of the scrimmage was Tua just getting out of the offense for having a rough day. You like to see that. You want to see that in your leaders. I was encouraged by seeing that after, just reading everything, that it was a rough day for the offense. I'm glad at least he took accountability along with Mike McDaniel and just was honest about it. That's the way you got to do it in the NFL or with anything. You got to accept the situation, look at it honestly and accountability, unbiased, and then move on. And part of the reason, like you said, was that the defense is doing good. And like you said, the defense is just dominating all of joint practice, which was great to see. Funny moment that, we got to touch on was just Xavier Howard not knowing who Desmond Ridder was. That was something that's all over the place. I laughed good at that. But anyways, moving along here. Noah Igbo just stepping up to the plate here and filling in. I have been hearing, and we were both of us agreed that we did not expect much of him.
No,
like Liam Eichenberg, if he wasn't a first round pick, he wouldn't have been on this team. And I think everyone could agree with that. But he's having a good camp by all accounts, which is awesome to see.
Literally as soon as we got off the podcast. So last podcast we recorded, and I was like, he shouldn't be on the team.
Yeah.
We got off the podcast literally about 10 minutes later. And I don't know if I was watching Reason maybe, or I was listening to Alf from 3 Yards Per Carry. He does this training camp live report after every practice. And he said, like, Noah right now is taking first team reps, the majority of them. And he is like holding his own. He doesn't look like X out there, but he looks like a starting cornerback in the NFL. And I messaged the group and I was like, literally, of course, as soon as we record that, because again, I had heard nothing about him. He kind of just popped on the scene the last week and a half. And I had heard like that he'd been okay. But nothing like we've heard the last week where it's like, I feel he's getting a pass breakup, an interception. Today, he forced a fumble for a touchdown return and had a pass breakup in the end zone. But we hadn't heard anything from that. But Noah has been, what a development that's been. It just turned out that all Noah needed was for the coaching staff that wanted him in the draft to be gone. Once they left, he's been great. And I think that whether it's him staying here long term or just me looking out for Noah the player, if he's not a Dolphin,
exactly. Because that's still a strong possibility in terms of what we were talking about with finances. But I think he'd get picked up now at this point by someone else, which I don't know.
I think he's your cornerback too, though. From everything I've heard, he's going to be your starter opposite Xavier Howard week 1. That's
the turn of events.
That would be quite the turn of events. And again, I'm one of those people where I don't care if I have a vendetta against you, if I don't think you're good. If you are playing well, I will be the first person to say I was wrong, and good for you, because that's better for the Dolphins. So if Noah Igbenogany is starting week 1 and he's playing well, I'll get a Noah Igbenogany jersey. I don't care. Like I would love that, because I know Cam Smith, for cornerbacks, it's one of the hardest positions to transition from college to the NFL. So even though we've heard like pass breakups, like he's been consistent, but he's still a rookie. So there's going to be times where he's going to get burnt. Fans just have to get over that. He's a rookie. But if Noah can turn out to be a good, I'm not saying great. I'm not saying he's going to be Xavier Howard, right? But if he can turn out to be a solid, he's not going to be a liability, a solid NFL cornerback, then that is phenomenal news for the future of this team, because you have Javon for a while. You have Jalen Phillips and that front four, which I believe is going to be intact for at least another 3-4 years. And then now if you have those cornerbacks to where, God forbid, Jalen goes down again, or if X goes down, because we know he has an injury history, if Noah can turn out to be a good cornerback, and you look at it and you say, hey, if our two best cornerbacks go down, we still have Cam Smith, who will develop. I think he's going to be a stud in the NFL. Noah, who can be solid and just not be a liability. And then Keter Kohu, who I believe is a dog. Like, I mean, what a fantastic development. And, I joked about this on Twitter. If Vic Fangio can turn Noah Igbenogany into a quality NFL starter, he deserves a statue out front, him and Chris Grier. Chris Grier needs to hold like a paper in his hand in the statue that has everything he got for Laramie Tunsil. And then Vic Fangio needs to have a whistle in his mouth with a big sombrero hat. And they need to be right next to each other in the front of Hard Rock Stadium if he ends up doing that.
And what's going to be interesting for everyone here, because obviously not all of us can get to practices here, so we're kind of just going by word and what little videos we do get. I think that Noah and probably some of the corners who played serious minutes last year are going to get a lot of time, not only in the preseason, but specifically this week. Because, I mean, the roster only goes so far,
Right.
Those guys are going to have to be playing in the fourth quarter probably, which is awesome. There'll be at least something to look for. I mean, Noah has been probably playing in the fourth quarter of most preseason games, but now it'll be at least for positive reasons, I think.
I don't think this year. I think this year, we'll get into it. I don't want to go too far into it right now, as far as like the preseason game and what we're looking forward to. But I think, I'd be curious to see if they start Keter. I think he's been good enough to where you don't need to play him this game. But if he wants to go out there, you put him out there. It's up to you. But I think you'll see Noah and Cam Smith starting. And I don't think you're going to see Noah into the third quarter, fourth quarter, like we have in years past. I think he's going to go out there, play a quarter, maybe a half. And I know, because I was under the assumption he's been second or third team. The word by word, or word for word, what Alf Arteaga said or Alf Arteaga, I'm not really sure, but Alf from 3 yards per carry said, Noah has been getting a majority of the first team reps. So yes, he is your first team cornerback. So I don't think that Noah will be out there like we have in years past. I think he's going to go out there. As long as he's not getting burnt and he's not a liability, he'll play a quarter, maybe two, and then they're going to get some of these other guys in because they trust him. I think this coaching staff likes what they see from him. So yeah, I'm curious to see him. I've yet to see him. He will be the main thing I watch on defense. I'll just say that right now. The main thing I'm going to watch on defense, if the starters aren't out there, Noah will be number one. Cam Smith will be number two. And then number three will be our backup interior defensive line.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the 1-2. And then that's one of the things you should be paying attention to in preseason is who's getting more time with the ones, like who's getting the first team reps. Is someone unexpected getting the first team reps? That's something to note. Not like, who threw how many interceptions did Tua throw in practice today? Because that's actually stuff that matters. Who's playing with the ones? That's when it's not expected, because that's key information there. These are real practices. Like, even though the media is watching everything and telling us what's going on, the coaches are watching too, and they're taking notes as well that matter.
Right. Yep.
And so What do you think the QB rotation situationally will be for the preseason game here? Meaning, who do you think is going to be first? How long? Who's going to come in second? And I know we just cut James Blackman, but
Right.
do we have another quarterback, or is it just going to be Mike White, Skylar Thompson finishing the game?
Yeah, I think that I don't expect Tua to play. There's 3 preseason games. I think he will. I think it's going to kind of be like, last year. I don't think did he play the first preseason game? I don't think he
Don't
did.
think
I
he
know
played the first. He played the
no,
second.
because the second was against the Eagles, right? The first was against the Bucket. Actually, no, I think he did play.
Let's see.
I know we played the Raiders, we
I'll check.
played the Eagles and the Buccaneers, I think. But I know he played against the Raiders and then he played against the Eagles, but I thought the Eagles might have been the third preseason game.
Bucks. Eagles were the third preseason game.
Okay, who's the first one?
Was the Bucks.
Yeah, so he didn't play against the Bucks. He played against the Raiders and he played against the Eagles. So I don't expect him to play against the Falcons this Friday. I expect it to be one half Mike White for the first half, second half Skylar, and then I think that next week it might flop because I'm not saying if it were me, it kind of seems like it's pretty even between Mike White and Skylar right now. And I think just because the politics of the money given towards Mike White this offseason, I think they'll probably let him start it. I think it's kind of his job to lose that quarterback 2 spot. So I would expect, honestly, if it were me, I would expect everyone on the offensive line except Tron Armstead to start. And I would expect the quarterback to be Mike White. And then at wide receiver, I think that it's going to be Chosen, maybe Braxton, I'm not sure, and Cedric Wilson. That'll probably be your starters. Tight ends, they're not going to rest anyone because I heard our tight ends are not good.
Yeah.
And then running back wise, I think it might just be the Devon Achane show. I think he might just get the start.
I agree with you there. I think it'll be a lot of Devon Achane.
Which is fun for sure. It's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. And I think on the flip side of that, which is good for the Dolphins, is I think you're going to see a decent amount of Desmond Ridder. I don't know how much you will be seeing of Taylor Heineke. I mean, maybe for some, but you know what he is. Like, I don't see what the value in playing him would be for the Falcons.
Desmond Ridder should probably get almost a full half of football. And then I think Taylor Heineke will probably get a quarter. And then I don't know. Nor do I care.
Logan Woodside.
Yeah, he'll probably get, a quarter. But I agree with you. I think you're going to see a lot of the Falcons first team out there.
Which is
probably not like Kyle Pitts.
Probably
not like some of their veterans. Kyle Pitts, I know, coming back from an injury. But and then, defensively again for the Dolphins, the only people I expect to start of our starting group, I'm trying to think, not many to be honest with you.
Like, sadly, I feel like that always happens where there's just like a couple D linemen where it's like, why are they even in right now?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Cater Coe would be the only guy, and then whoever's playing opposite Holland, I think those would be the starters to look for as far as like who's going to be playing. But again, like Javon, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Christian Wilkins, I don't expect, Baker, Long. I don't expect any of them to play, to be honest with you. So I would be happy if they did because I get to see them. But also, it's kind of the devil's advocate of being like, well, do I want them to possibly get injured? But I mean, it's football. So,
Yeah. And that's Friday here. Is that what time's kickoff? 7, right?
Yeah, I'm 3 hours because I live in Arizona. So it starts at 4:00 for me, which Eastern time is 7.
Yeah. I think it's going to be at least by preseason standards, an entertaining game. I'm sure you did as well, but the Hall of Fame game, man, that's always the most anticipated game that just like 2 drives in, it's like, oh God, when is this going to happen?
I know we always get excited for football to come, and then after like the first 3 drives, it's like, okay,
Yeah, exactly. That was why
Memories.
I was like, what am I even watching? Like, this is, can we even
And it
call
was just like it was like you couldn't have picked, you're picking a team in the Browns that have never won a Super Bowl, and you're picking a team in the Jets that haven't won a Super Bowl since my dad was like 5, and you're picking them to represent the NFL for a game that's supposed to honor the Hall of Famers. So I was like, I mean, I couldn't think of a worse. It would be like 3 years ago if like the Jaguars played like
the Cardinals?
I don't even, yeah, like the Cardinals maybe. I don't even know. Like and especially because the Jets are an exciting team. At least they have a lot of storylines, but we don't even get to see like the people we want to see with the Jets. So yeah, it was a snooze fest. Although Dorian Thompson Robinson DTR for the Browns,
He
looked
looks
good.
great. Yeah,
Looked good.
I think Kellen Mond might be out of a job.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I did like him coming out of the draft, but I think I don't see him starting or getting that backup job after what they saw from DTR.
Yeah, that was impressive. That was the highlight of the game, just him. But yes, and what are you looking for? We did mention some players. I'll just say mine here and for the preseason game. What I'm going to be watching for and really paying attention is Noah and Cam Smith, like you said. And then also I'm going to be watching Devon Achane. What does he have? Because there have already been some running back bumps, and there's been some other bumps to the team that we will touch on here. But yeah, I'm interested to see what he has. This was a Mike McDaniel pick. This was who he was banging the table for, much like when Brian Flores was grinning after Raekwon Davis. This is who McDaniel wanted here. This is his guy. I'm excited to see what he's got in store. And yeah, then I will be watching the O-line because that's just what I enjoyed watching preseason personally.
Right.
I like what they're doing because O-line depth is one of the most underrated things always, I feel like, for the NFL as a whole, because these guys get hurt and the drop off sometimes is so crazy. It's ridiculous when you just see some tackles and then you go from I can't think of who we had at the time, but Billy Turner is a name that will haunt us forever. Jesse Davis, backup tackle. I'm sure everyone remembers him. You want to see who you got back there because they're going to have to play minutes. That's just the nature of the league here. So that'll be my keys to the game, what I'm paying attention for. What about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through my list because, again, I thoroughly enjoy preseason games for the Dolphins. I have for a long time now. I remember being, when I was a kid and my dad was always be like, preseason doesn't count. Like I'd be like, the Dolphins beat the Falcons, 17-10. And then my dad's like, it doesn't count. Right. But I just think it's cool. I think it's fun to see your team out there anytime. Doesn't really matter the circumstances. But yeah, I sat down because, for those that are listening, we will message about like a couple hours before the show. And we're just like, hey, these are the topics we'd all like to touch on. And, we start kind of going through everything on our own to, so we're prepared for the show. Right. So I started going through and I was like, oh my God, like I have a lot of stuff that I'm going to be looking for in this game. And I think it's compared to years past, it's maybe a little more. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of go through. I'll start with special teams because we never talk about it. And I understand that, but it is important. So number one, Jason Sanders. I would love to be able to see him consistently make some 50-yard field goals because he hasn't in practice. And that's kind of been his Achilles heel the last couple of years. So Jason Sanders.
Hater in the Jason Sanders fan club. I can't believe he's still our kicker.
Yeah, I see. I'm not a huge fan of him. Well, at least recently, I was a huge fan, and I guess that's how I'm always going to be a huge fan until proven otherwise. And I was a huge fan of his until he got his contract, and as soon as that happened, right. But yeah, I want to see some field goals from him. Again, I don't care about the score. We could get demolished. I don't care. We just absolutely destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and they went to the Super Bowl. So score to me could not matter less. I more so care about the plays I would rather see, a higher score or a lower score and good plays rather than like, hey, we had a higher score because this, and this happened, but our backup quarterback threw 5 interceptions, right? Or something like that. So for me, don't care about the score, but I'd love to see Jason get some opportunities to nail some longer field goals. I've heard that Jake Bailey, our punter, has a rocket of a leg, but they haven't seen him kind of down inside the 20 much. So I'd love to see, some consistency there. I always, I've heard that he's been kicking off. He's been the kickoff specialist. And, I've been saying this for 2 years now. And we look back at the Ravens game, what happened last year, and in years past, every kickoff should be through the back of the end zone. I know that it's harder. It's easier said than done, but why would you ever in a million years take a chance of the guy returning it? I don't care if you have a good special teams unit. I don't care if you think you're going to stop them inside the 25-yard line. Worst case scenario, they're going to start their drive 5 yards back. It's really not that big of a deal. Don't take the chance, just kick it through. So I would love to see, I know Jake Bailey has a strong leg. If he's going to be our kickoff specialist, I would love to see, again, just kick that ball through the end zone every time. Don't give the opportunity for the other team to gain momentum or get easy points. Switching to offense, and if you have comments, just feel free to stop me, because, again, I do have a lengthier list because that's just special teams. On offense,
I'd say real quick, as far as special team goes, I'm interested in Jake Bailey. Like you said, he should have rocket. I mean, Morstead was great for us last year, I thought.
I'm sad he left, to be honest with you. I liked him.
I was hoping he would stay as well. At least the difference from Pilardi to him was night and day.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to get worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the rule change also may matter different in terms of kickoffs, and I think there'll be less returns, even more. But agree with you. Get it out of the end zone.
True. I hadn't even thought of that, to be honest with you, until you just brought that up. So thank you for bringing that. Yeah, I think, and even, I just
control what you can control.
Right. I don't know how permanent that's going to be. I would have much rather seen what the XFL does, which I know they're thinking about it. I'd much rather see that. I mean, if you could just fair catch it anywhere, I get it. But, just at a certain point, it's just either have it to where if you want to risk the injuries, which there's not many injuries on kickoff returns, there's way better ways to risk it to reduce injuries. But, 75% of kickoff returns aren't returned anyway. So, but yeah, I know what you're saying. So yeah, I'd be curious to see how that changes it, but still just kick it through the end zone if you can. I mean, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Just kick through the end zone. We don't have to worry about anything. But again, I know it's easier said than done. It's not just every time you kick, it'll go that far. Offensively, I need to see with my own eyes Mike White versus Skylar Thompson, because my mind tells me Mike White has more experience. My heart tells me Skylar Thompson in year 2 of this system. Last year, honestly, if a couple things fall our way, we're beating the Buffalo Bills with Skylar Thompson. He won us a game against the Jets that got us into the playoffs. He did not lose us the game against the Patriots. He got injured, and our backup, who we paid money to, and notice how you're seeing a theme here. The backup you pay money to, Teddy Bridgewater, comes in and just plays horrible, throws an interception, just doesn't play well at all last year. Up until at the very end of the game against the Jets, the first time he was playing well. And, just one thing, again, ball doesn't bounce your way 1 or 2 times, and all of a sudden you're looking at it and it's 40-19, even though the score was, I think, 19-17 or something like that, up until the last 6 minutes of the game or something. So I'm curious to see with my own 2 eyes, because, I don't want to get into it, but there's a lot of people in the local media that I just don't trust. I don't trust at all. That's why I listen to Travis Wingfield. I listen to Kyle Krabs. I listen to Reason. I listen to Alf and those guys from 3 Yards Per Carry, because there's a lot of guys in the media that you just hear so many conflicting things. I need to see things with my own eyes for me to, how am I supposed to come on here on a show and be give you my honest opinion if I've never seen it with my own eyes and I'm just relying on other people. So I need to see that with my own eyes, because I don't think there's much of a gap between them. And I think that the fact that Skylar has one more extra year in this system versus Mike White, in my eyes, gives him the advantage. But again, I'm not afraid to be wrong. And I just want to see how that plays out. I want to see the play calling. Okay. I want to see not the actual play design. How fast are we getting these plays out? How comfortable do these quarterbacks feel operating the huddle and getting guys to the line of scrimmage before 10 seconds is left on the play clock? Offensive line wise, I don't think there's anyone on the offensive line that is good enough to not play this game. There's certain guys that sure, maybe you play a little less. But I think Liam Eichenberg, even if it doesn't help him get better as punishment for how bad you've been, you're playing the whole entire preseason game, or at least a lot of it, because
you got to show something. Like
you have to show, like literally just at this point, he just has to show that he should be on the roster. He shouldn't be starting. I've been saying that since before last season, but here we are. And so he just needs to show that he deserves a roster spot, because there's plenty of other places, or there's plenty of other free agents on the street that can suck like he has. You know what I mean? So he just needs to show and fight for his life that he should have a roster spot. Tight end wise, we all know I like Elijah Higgins. Said it on the podcast. Really like him. He's extremely raw. Again, this is one of those places where I look at some of the beat writers and they're like, Elijah Higgins has been struggling. Well, he's never played tight end before. So I think that's normal. Not only was he a 5th round pick coming from college, which is hard, but he's literally changing positions. But all I've heard is he has wow factor. Like, he has wow potential with the speed, the size, the athleticism, some of the catches he's made. And typically these are those games where those type of people stand out. And I think that the tight end room's wide open. After Durham Smythe, it's wide open. So I would love to see some Elijah Higgins. Just give him some 50-50 balls. If I'm Skylar Thompson, give him some 50-50 balls. Let me see what he can do. Again, stop me, because I'm like halfway through the offense and then I have defense. So I apologize.
No, you're good. The only thing I was just going to mention, this is pretty off topic, but you're speaking of tight ends. John Embry's son is a coach on the Jets.
I didn't know that at all. No.
Yeah, I was watching Hard Knocks and it came up at Taylor Embry. I was like, I bet he's related to John Embry. And then I looked at it
up, and he's the son.
I was like, his son's coaching on the Jets, and he's the Embry name goes deep in the NFL. Now a rivalry, father son.
Dude, John Embry's a phenomenal coach, and I feel bad because I've seen some people that are like, John Embry sucks, and it's like, I don't understand people sometimes. If I gave a world-class chef spoiled ingredients, exactly. He's not a bad chef. He's just gonna, or she, they're just gonna look at you like, I can't do anything with this. And I said the same thing for Stoodsville when he got promoted to an offensive coordinator, and they were like, well, what's he done with the running backs? I was like, his running back is Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed. I don't know what you expect him to do. It's not like he has Dalvin Cook out here, Jonathan Taylor, right? So John Embry, I love him as a coach, dude. I think he is a great coach. There's not one person or article I've read of a player talking about him that isn't insanely positive. So luckily he's leading that tight end room. But so Elijah Higgins, super excited for. Running back wise, if you think that it's a coincidence that Dalvin Cook has been waiting and Devon Achane is starting to do better, you're lying to yourself. There is a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's a reason. Mike McDaniel wanted Devon Achane, and they're not going to pay Dalvin Cook a lot of money, even though I just would at this point, because I'd rather have Dalvin and Achane than Mostert and Achane. But it's not a coincidence that Devon Achane is flourishing and doing well and has a lot of speed, and all of that. And they're hesitant to give Dalvin Cook money because Devon Achane has that superstar wow potential. And again, like I said with Elijah Higgins, preseason is typically where those people with just freakish traits show up and show out, because they're not going against the best of the best. They can kind of play with people as talented as them, and it's an ease into the regular season. Devon Achane, I expect some highlight stuff. I expect them to try to show him off. If anything, again, with the Dalvin Cook situation, let's show off to everyone, including Dalvin Cook, how good our running back room is and how talented it is, so that he's understands why we're only willing to give him $4.5 million. Again, I would give him a little more, but
not to put on like a tinfoil hat here, but I think they should want to do that if they want to say, like a fan base here, like calm down.
Yeah, exactly.
Back. Like they should want to show him, because if the running backs struggle in this game, then the fan base is going to go absolutely crazy and be like, why don't we have Dalvin Cook? Why don't we have Dalvin Cook? Do you see the running backs? Do you see the running
And it's the opposite as well too, where if Devon Achane has one 20-yard run, everyone's going to be like, he's the future of the Dolphins, right?
Yeah,
so
we live with
right. But I think that that again, we kind of get into a conversation as a fan base of like, well, we have Devon, so we don't need Dalvin. To me, it's, would you rather have Dalvin or Raheem? And it's not even a question, right? No disrespect to Raheem, but he's more like a backup, not a workhorse. So like, that's just me. It's like, if you're paying, think about it this way. Again, you're paying Cedric Wilson $7.35 million, and Dalvin Cook would be a Dolphin tomorrow if you gave him $6 million right now. So that, again, people, I understand he's a running back, but if you're going to pay Cedric $7.5 million to be our wide receiver 5, you can pay Dalvin Cook $6 million to be our starting running back. But nonetheless, I think Mike McDaniel, what happened last year, the first time Tyreek and Tua played together? What was the first play of the game?
Yeah.
Uncorked it, bomb. Mike McDaniel wants to show off why he does what he does. And I can bet you every amount of money. I'm not saying that Devon Achane is going to go off. I don't know. But they are going to try to show off Devon Achane.
Get a nice wheel route.
I would be, again, practice today ended with a 40-yard dime from Skylar to Devon Achane for a touchdown. It was 6 seconds left on the clock. You're down 6. Dot on a wheel route to Devon Achane for a touchdown that won them the game. Practice, you know what I mean? So yeah, running back wise, I don't really expect anything. We know what Savon is. We know what Miles is. I know his name is escaping me. There was a guy who had a 95-yard touchdown in practice. I apologize. His name's escaping me. I'd be curious to see there, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Wide receiver wise, okay, now we're getting into the wide receiver, the last position on offense. I'm very curious to see what's going on with Robbie Chosen, because what I've heard is he's only getting very little snaps with the offense, with the starters, and in general. They haven't given him any snaps. But all I keep seeing, especially the last couple days, is dot to Robbie Chosen. Robbie Chosen for 50 yards. Robbie Chosen over the middle. Tua to Robbie Chosen, 25 yards. Touchdown, Robbie Chosen. That's all I keep seeing. So I'm confused. I know there's questions about his work ethic, and I wonder if this is a thing that Mike McDaniel's doing because he's testing to see if he's still going to be hungry if he's not featured. But I think it would be irresponsible to get rid of Robbie Chosen and keep other people. But also at the same time, like if it were me, Robbie Chosen would be on the team before Cedric Wilson. That's just me personally, because I don't expect anything from Cedric Wilson. But I'm curious to see what's going on there, because again, you look at practice today and every big play was Robbie Chosen, even more than Tyreek and Jalen.
If you're looking at just practice, he's looked like a practice all-star.
Right, but then you hear reports that like he's only getting like 5 or 6 reps, and I'm like, well, damn, if he's only getting 5 or 6 reps, well, 4 of those 5 reps are touchdowns or big plays. So Robbie Chosen talent-wise is the 3rd best talent on this team, wide receiver-wise. He's behind Tyreek and Jalen, but 90% of the NFL is. He is a very talented wide receiver. So him playing against second stringers or third string players on Friday, I expect him to pop off. I would not be shocked in the slightest if we got here talking about, what happened maybe Saturday, whenever we do our next one, and we were saying Robbie Chosen looked incredible in the preseason game because he's just a physical freak. He's fast. He's a great wide receiver. We're only like 3 years removed from 1,000-yard receiving season from him. So I'm really curious what's going to go on there. But honestly, from the wide receivers, I'm not expecting much because I know Ezukama's injured. And maybe not like he might play. I'm not really sure what the situation is with him, but I just don't expect. I kind of know what the situation is with him as far as him as a player. He's going to make the team, so I don't need to see anything. But Robbie Chosen's kind of this question mark and mystery to me because, again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, my mind's telling me he might not because he doesn't do special teams and he's barely getting snaps. But then in my heart, I'm like, he is our third most talented wide receiver. It would be stupid to get rid of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I would just say like there's the depth at receiver from just previous like Dolphins teams is crazy. Like, well, if someone decent's going to get cut, it could be him. It could be another Cedric Wilson.
Well, let's play it real quick. So, how many wide receivers do you think they'll keep? 6 or 7?
I think.
I'd rather them keep 7 wide receivers and get rid of a tight end.
That's one on the practice squad, but there's no the receivers that are at the end of the depth chart would be picked up. I think at least would be clear.
Right. Like I think like we're gonna we'll do an episode of our prediction of 53-man roster right before it comes out. But I think like okay, so Tyreek, Jalen, Braxton, we know. Ezukama is gonna make the team. Cedric Wilson's not going to get cut. If anything, if a team might trade for him to get his contract, but he's not going to get cut, so he'll make the team. So it's between Robbie Chosen, it's between River Craycraft, Braylon Sanders will come back, and I know that they really like him. So
I believe he got hurt.
He got hurt 2 days ago, and Mike McDaniel said he'll be coming back probably sometime next week. But again, we did Tyreek, Jalen, Braxton, Ezukama, Cedric, River Craycraft. I know they really like him, so that's 6 right there. And even if they only keep 6, it's either him or Chosen, and that's going to be a hard choice for them to say, "Hey, River Craycraft, who helps us out on special teams, and I really like."
Yeah, he's in year 2. That could be the swing factor. The special teams is. Chosen is not playing special.
Right. So Chosen's only probably going to make this roster if they shockingly cut River Craycraft or they keep 7 wide receivers. Yeah. Because again, the numbers game, even though he's better than Cedric, again, this is where I argue with Dolphins fans. Cedric's making $7.35 million. So he's not going to get cut from this team, and they're not going to just pay him that for fun unless they can trade him, which could happen. But that's what I'm saying. That's what's intriguing is like Robbie Chosen could possibly get cut from our roster, and he's the third most talented wide receiver we have. So that's shocking to me. So let's see what happens there. So offensively, again, that's offense. Defense, I'll go through a little quicker because there's not as much, to be honest with you, because I'm not worried about the defense, and I expect a lot more starters to play on offense than defense. Especially because, you look at the offensive line, I would start most of them. So that right there is a huge amount of our starters on offense playing. But defense-wise, Noah Igbenogany and Cam Smith. They're going to be your cornerback 1 and 2 most likely. I don't know if Cater's going to play. I don't really think he needs to, but I wouldn't be shocked because, he's only in year 2 and he was an undrafted rookie. So who knows? I want to see from my own eyes Cam Smith and Noah. I want to see Noah. I don't need to see him making 5 pass breakups and an interception and all this. I just want to see, do the Falcons pick on Noah? Because if we get into the first or second quarter and Noah's name hasn't come out of my mouth in a bad way, that's going to be a positive sign. Again, I know it's not the regular season, but let's look back at last year when we were like, oh my God, Noah, you are so bad. And you're playing in the fourth quarter of the first preseason game. Like that, if we can get to, wow, we're not really saying Noah's name and he's doing pretty well and he's making a play here and there. That's step one, check mark. Next thing would be do it against another team. Next thing would be do it in the regular season. So let's get to see that. Cam Smith, I'm curious to see what he looks like. How fast is he? Does he get his hands on the ball? I'm curious to see who our safety is opposite Javon Holland, because I think that there's that would be one position on defense that I would say they're not going to rest the starters. Brandon Jones, yeah, because injury, but I think that Deshaun Elliott, I'd be putting him out there. Deshaun Elliott and Elijah Campbell, here you go. Have at it for the safeties. You two are going to be playing the safeties. You're going to be our strong and free safety on preseason week 1. So
Agreed.
I want to see how they do. Because I've heard people say that it should be Brandon Jones. I've heard people say it should be Deshaun Elliott. Omar Kelly went as far to say it should be Elijah Campbell. So I don't know. I don't know who to believe. I need to see with my own eyes. And then linebacker wise, and really I'll just say front 7 to kind of summarize everything. I just kind of want to see what the depth is like, because I feel extremely confident with Long, Baker, Phillips, Sealer, Wilkins, and Chubb. But after that, I go, well, Emmanuel Ogbah is in the best shape he's ever been in, but they're asking him to play a position he's not good at, so he hasn't looked good. So what's he going to look like? Raekwon Davis should be unguardable. He's 6'7", 331 pounds, but here we are, and he's not a starting. He's never even been a starting player for the Dolphins, right? So I want to see what that's like. Brandon Pilley, apparently the last 2 days has looked unguardable. Cameron Good, those type of, I'm curious to see what our front 7 after those guys, the backups, looks like. Because again, I anticipate they're going to go against a majority of the Falcons starters. The Falcons aren't good enough to just be we're going to rest a bunch of people. They don't have a lot of veterans. They don't have a lot of.
Got to figure out what they have. They'll be
right. So I want to, I don't want it to go out there. And even though it's our second team, Vic Fangio loves his rotation, and I don't want us to go out there and just get dominated by their offensive line, even though it's backup. So that's the type of stuff. Defense, I'm not really looking forward to, or I'm not looking for as much on the defense, because I know that 90% of our starters won't be out there, but Noah Igbenogany and Cam Smith will be for sure my main thing that I'm watching, unless some starter plays that I don't know about, like Jalen Phillips or something, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Noah Igbenogany and Cam Smith for sure. And then, offense, there's a lot there, though, that I'll be looking for.
The shame is it's going to be very vanilla the whole time. We're not going to see what these guys could really do if we were really trying to win. But obviously, that's preseason. I think you made some great points there. I agree with most of them. Honestly, when you said, I wasn't thinking about it before, but now you got me fired up to watch Jake Bailey. Because there was questions when he was with the Patriots. Does he still have the leg? I believe he had the injury. Do you remember exactly what he had?
Braylon Sanders?
No, Jake Bailey.
What do you mean what he had? Sorry.
Last year. He had an injury.
No. I'm not sure. I know he was with Patriots. I was actually just reading something from they were saying how I won't say who, but from what they'd heard, that there's a reason why they're not really playing Tyreek and Jalen Waddle a lot together, and that's because Mike McDaniel felt last year that the offense was too dependent on succeeding when both of them were on the field. So that's what they said. They were like, that's kind of interesting, because I hadn't thought about that way, but that's why you haven't seen a lot of both of them on the field. It's been Tyreek, and just because they're trying to not just be hey, when those two are on the field, we're great, but when they're not, we can't do much.
Yeah. So, we'll wrap it up with this here. Mike McDaniel's, he's always great for a good presser. I think a lot of just what he's saying has been interesting. A couple things that you got to note, he's learned a lot from last year talking with the media. I think at least it was just funny to me that he was it's been a cool week for Mike White. Like that doesn't mean anything. Like now he's finally learning what he should and shouldn't be saying to the media. So just something to keep out for his development as a coach. That's what I'm most interested for in the preseason. Now that he has a year under his belt, how's he going to treat this preseason differently than before? Like that's what you want to see in a coach. Like how's he getting this team ready for week 1 for the season? Where does he want to be? Where does he want to take this team? What have you been thinking of what he's been saying, doing, anything you thought was good, bad, unique?
Yeah, Mike McDaniel's weird in a good way and interesting because his press conferences always have like highlights, but he never says anything. So I'm like, I don't know how that's possible because everyone talks about things he said. Like what he say today, he said, if our goal was to be average, then I was pretty pumped after last practice. And again, like he doesn't say anything. It's not like he's giving away anything, but I think he just has a way about him where
he's
right. He's just like honest. And, I love how he says all the time, like, penalties are only an issue if we repeat them a lot and if it's the same people. But like at the end of the day, I have to come about it from a place where like no player wants to commit a penalty. It's not like they're like, yes, I got a false start. You know what I mean? So I just love his honesty, and he has a fun way about him to where even when things are kind of like, like he has a way of making you feel weirdly optimistic. Not like motivating, but like he just makes it seem like he's got it under control. But main thing I want to see from Mike McDaniel in year 2 is just with any coordinator, I want to see how you adapt because teams are going to figure you out, and I want to see what wrinkles they add, what he adds. But I really gave him a pass last year. I wasn't really hard on him because he had never been a head coach. And in his first year as a head coach, he was also his first year as a play caller. And he's dealing with an offense where your starting quarterback is only playing, a third of the season, a little over a third of the season. So, I think a lot of people, if this were any other team and he was a rookie head coach who had never called plays, your team's probably vying for the first overall pick. But because he was such a good head coach and built this team well, we were able to get to the playoffs. And so those mistakes actually mattered. But, main things I want to see from him, I'm definitely going to have, I think he's a good coach. I do. But, this year I want to see, just how he handles the game plan. I don't need to see him like as a leader or his maturity or anything change. I want him to stay who he is. But I want to see like play calling wise, the teams are going to take away the middle of the field. So let's try to add some wrinkles maybe to the outside the hash numbers. I know Tua isn't super comfortable there, but he's able to throw there. So let's get him throwing there. I want to see again how he adapts. I want to see his maturity as far as does he run more? Does he rely on it more? Because last year we were averaging 5 yards a carry nearly, and I understand because you have Tyreek and Jalen and your quarterback's lights out when he's healthy. So I get it. But sometimes you need to have less flash and just win the game. And I think that he is a smart enough and self-aware enough head coach to fix those things. But definitely things I'll be keeping an eye on. And I also think it's going to help him that he's not going to have the 24th ranked defense in the NFL. I can't stress that enough. You're going to have to throw the football a lot more when you're playing the Detroit Lions and you're losing 21-7, right? You're going to have to, throw a lot when you can't stop Justin Fields to save your life. So I think that him having a coach like Vic Fangio who will play a little more conservative and not give up as many big plays. I'm not saying he won't. I'm not saying he won't be aggressive and he's just going to change to run the football all the time like Mike Vrabel. But I think that you're going to see a coach who matures. So yeah, I don't really have much concern for Mike McDaniel, but definitely some things to keep an eye on.
Yeah, totally. And all right. Well, from us here at Dolphins versus the World, from me, Anthony, Joel, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for the support. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will be back here for a recap of the preseason game and whatever else happens in in this time of year, I mean, there has been no shortage of news, and
right.
We're back here.
Yep, fins up.